everyone!
Hi, welcome back to Chit Chat East West. This is our 10th episode. What a journey.
Yay! A special episode.
Yeah, special episode. As you can tell, we have changed our medium. We have changed our language. We've switched to English. How's everybody doing?
Not too bad. Just actually quite tired today.
It's only 9 in the morning where you are. Why are you so tired?
Late night.
So what have you been up to?
Looking up flying lessons. Actually speaking to flight schools and trying to budget everything now.
Oh, that's good.
I think we've been very proactive, this group, lately, right? Because I know that Miffy's learning some stuff as well.
Yes, I'm recently trying to pick up my Japanese back because I want to maybe take an exam, and I'm actually learning ballet. Not learning, it's doing a ballet class.
As in like what, dancing ballet?
Yeah, at home.
Oh wow.
Through Zoom.
Have you ever learned it when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because I actually did learn quite a long time, like nearly almost, I think that's more than 10 years. But then I quit it because academic pressure is really heavy in Hong Kong. So I quit it. But now I'm finding myself as more into ballet again. And I finally know what's the beauty inside this dance. So yeah.
It's a bit like me and my piano, actually. When I was growing up, I dread practicing or having any kind of lessons. To be very honest with you, it's really funny that my proper teacher is actually my dad. I've never had a proper teacher before because he knows and he taught me. It was hard. I think it was awkward and it was bad enough that it was my dad being my teacher. If it's another teacher, I would be like, oh, I hate that teacher forcing me to do this and that. But it was my dad. It's awkward in that sense, I think.
And you probably can't escape.
Exactly.
Because your dad is like, I told you to practice.
It's my dad teaching me the content, but then it's my mom every single day fixing a practice session with me, and she would sit next to me and do all of that. So it's quite stressful when I was growing up doing all of that.
You know what they say about typical Asian parents, right?
That is,
monster parents.
You're looking at it right now. But then I do thank them, or else I wouldn't have this particular skill to help me. It's actually important in my career right now. I'm doing what I'm doing. But anyway, I'm taking up lessons as well. I'm trying to polish my CV, so I'm getting lots of different teachers to improve my musical side, I would say. I'm trying to take up exams in the coming academic year, I guess.
At all. Acting. We're learning together, taking exams together.
Yeah, I know. We're all actually very proactive in seeking out new knowledge, aren't we?
Yeah, that's good. I like this atmosphere, like a study group.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my flight instructor if I can bring like a GoPro with me, and I will put it on YouTube, like me trying to fly a plane.
So you have to tell us what your YouTube channel is, yeah?
I think it's literally just the same. It's Perseus 852.
Okay.
I'm very boring with these days. I tend to name across all platforms because otherwise I forget. It's not about ease of people finding me, it's because I forget what I've called myself.
Okay.
I bet all your passwords are the same then.
No, they're not.
So this week, in all the horror of thinking whether I have COVID or not, I actually had a test done because of all my coughing. I've been coughing non-stop for 8 days. I'm still coughing a little bit, but I'm getting much better. But because of that, I arranged a doctor seeing me. Well, it's really advanced actually, because of the whole, current situation of COVID. They usually would do home visits, but because of that, they have arranged a Zoom session with me. So anything can be done on Zoom right now, I think. Our lessons and...
Wait, you had a COVID test on Zoom?
I didn't have a COVID test on Zoom. I had a doctor's examination just to have a checkup
on
Zoom. So what happened was there's this medical doctor's system on an app where you can actually talk to them on WhatsApp. Anything's on WhatsApp actually in this country. Talk to them really easily, then they'll arrange someone to see you, to meet with you. So the first obstacle was they arranged a payment first. You have to pay first before you see the physician. I couldn't because supposedly I'm in isolation and I couldn't go out to get any cash. And because it's not an actual home visit, I can only pay by card or any kind of online payment system. They wouldn't accept my foreign debit card because I don't have a local debit card. I use everything on the Starling card that we talked about last week. They wouldn't accept that. It's all declined like 10 times. What they'd said was, well, but you have to pay or else you can't see one. I'm like, what do you mean? What if a person's dying? That's not possible. And they're like, sorry, you have to do it. And then what they did was, they were so stupid and non-flexible. They sent me a location of their clinic to ask me to pay there first, and then they will arrange a Zoom meeting with me. I'm thinking,
wow.
if I'm at the clinic already, why do I have to?
Why don't you just see me at the clinic?
Exactly. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Anyway, that's just the first bit. And then all of that repeatedly going on with, no payments, I can't arrange anything for you, no payments, like you can't see the results and things like that. So finally I saw a physician, and just a cough. He's asking all of these. Of course, as a doctor, he has to rule out whether it is COVID or not, because I do have some symptoms. I'm coughing, I had a runny nose, but I don't have a fever. I don't have a headache. I don't have chest pain. I don't feel tired. So like 90% I'm not COVID. But then, because he saw what I look like, right? So he knows that I'm a foreigner. He knows that I'm expat. So he's like, do you have insurance? I'm like, yes. And then he asked, which one? And I told him which one. And he's like, oh, yes, great, good, very good. It's covered. So what we're going to do is we're going to arrange a COVID test for you. I'm like, really? So because of that, I had to tell my work, because I'm now an active suspected case. I can't go to work because of that. Thank you very much for that. So the thing is, he's like, so I'm going to arrange a lab to come to you to get tests done, and then we'll tell you the results afterwards. I'm like, okay, great, thanks. Hung up, and then a few minutes later, lab sent me a message and asked me, so can you tell me your address, and then what time are you available to do the test tomorrow? And then I asked, what kind of test is it? They said, a blood test. I'm like, but what? You can't see if you have COVID through a blood test. And they said, but that's what the doctor said. I'm like, okay.
Are you sure it wasn't like the antibodies test? Which is
it is the antibodies test. But if I don't have COVID, I don't have the antibodies, right?
Yeah.
And if I do, the antibodies will only develop after a few days.
Oh, yeah.
It won't just come up right there.
It's just useless.
So it's not the most accurate thing.
Wow.
And it's anyway, we don't recommend it. So I have to, because of my obligations, I have to tell my work that I'm just doing a blood test. And then they're like, no, according to our policy, you have to do a PCR test. So the cotton swab one.
Oh.
So I'm like, okay, I'll have to talk to them again. So the whole cycle of talking to locals with minimal English again, arranging things and no payment and stuff like that. Yeah, that all came back. That was like third day of my sick leave. The funniest thing was the first guy who drew my blood, he didn't have any gear on. He has a t-shirt and he was wearing jeans. That was it.
So chill.
And yeah, he's got his big medical box just pumped onto my coffee table without like wiping anything off.
No, come on. Are you serious?
Yeah, he left it on my mat. He left it on my, all the mats that I have for my food and stuff. I used Dettol to wipe it all off later afterwards. He does have a pair of gloves when he was drawing my blood, but was he wearing a mask? He was wearing a mask, but yeah, nothing else. Not like protective gear or anything. Nothing. And then the grossest thing was the used needle. He just put the cap back on and then put it back in his medical box. He didn't put it in a separate disposable bag or anything like that. Nothing like that.
No way.
And I saw a piece of used tissue in his box when he first opened
Ew.
it. I don't know what is in there. It doesn't look like it's blood, but it's still gross when it's like crumbled up, right? And also, he did not take off his shoes when he came into my apartment.
Oh no.
He stepped all over my rug with his shoes.
This is not acceptable. Even it's not in the pandemic.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing, right? White people, they like wearing shoes in their own homes, but not Asians.
Yeah.
And he's like walking back and forth because he had to make a phone call because we wouldn't pay, because I said we're covered by my insurance. And he's like walking back and forth talking on the phone. I'm looking at it, and Nolan was like, excuse me, can you just maybe stay in a spot even if you don't want to take your shoes off? So luckily the next guy who did my PCR test, he did take his shoes off this time, and he was wearing like a nurse outfit.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, this looks more promising. That's great. Same looking kind of box. I cleared out the space for him this time, so he's not putting things on my mat because I've had experience. So I opened it. This guy was a bit timid, this one, because he took a lot of deep breaths every time he takes stuff out. So he took his gloves out and he went
What?
like that. It's a bit creepy. And then, remember, he's already got his nurse outfit on, right?
No.
He took out a full-on onesie, those protective gears, and he put it on in front of us.
What?
And it's just the most awkward thing that I've seen. When he was putting one leg in, putting the other leg in, he went like deep breaths again.
Is he like really unfit?
I don't know if he's unfit or if he's nervous about
Or maybe
it.
he's got COVID himself.
I'm worried, but I don't know, yeah. That was the weird part. And also weird is, wouldn't you be wearing the protective gear before you go into my flat? If I am actively, if I have the virus, then you would get it before you put it on. I don't know. Any medical people out there, let me know if I'm wrong. Anyway, yeah, so he was like that, and then he swabbed me, one down my throat, one down my nose, and he put both of the swabs in the same glass tube. I don't know if you should be doing that. Nolan's done it. He's done the NHS drive-through kind of thing. He said you have to put it in separate ones, and he can do it himself. That guy was not a gentle guy at all. He poked me right down my throat. It was, it was horrible. So he put it together and all sorts, and so that was it. And he, in front of us, he undressed himself again, deep breaths and all of that. And yeah, putting his gear back into a plastic bag, and he was like, yeah, we'll send you the result by tonight. We didn't get it tonight, we got it the other night. Other people told us, we're going to get your results between 6 and 7 p.m. We didn't get our results until 10 p.m. And it was just one word, negative. We'll send you the reports in the morning.
You know what though? Sometimes I wonder if it's negative as is like it's bad news or what.
I know. Anyway, yeah, what a fun experience. I don't know if everyone's as unprofessional in the whole world as it is or not.
Oh wow, sounds like you had fun.
Yes, I can write a book about all of this. Actually.
Yes, you can. A very thick book. Okay, so this week is a special episode, and in the previous EP we are talking about the issue about the UK, and I believe there are more people who want to know about other countries like Canada. So today we're so happy to invite a very special guest, Kyle, to talk about life in Canada because he's a Canadian Chinese. So
welcome
Kyle.
Welcome
to our little corner of the internet.
It's a pretty big corner though, I would say.
Oh, it could be bigger.
I've met Kyle actually on the internet, right? On Twitter. We have some common beliefs.
Yes.
And yeah, we were being put to a group together, and yeah, we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, we've been internet friends since.
Because being internet friends, I've actually never seen what Kyle looks like.
Yes, no one has ever seen me, but that's how the internet is.
So Carl's like icon, as far as we can see, it's just like a pair of glasses, and that's it. That's Kyle.
Before this icon, he actually has a Bitmoji. Sorry, not Bitmoji. An emoji kind of. Is it like the Wii character? Is that what it is?
No, it isn't actually. I changed it. That was previous.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's what I mean.
That one was from Animal Crossing.
Okay. I don't play that game, so I don't know. Yeah, but it was like a guy, with a pair of glasses and then with a pink background, which is very fun. So that's every time we talk about Kyle, that's what pops up in my head. That's Kyle, the cartoon character.
Pink background.
Sorry, I just want to since we mentioned Animal Crossing, I just want to say, why do I have cockroaches in my house in Animal Crossing?
I can't even answer you that question. It's been a while since I actually played it. I haven't touched my Switches in a while.
Okay, so if you log back in, you might have like all kind of weird things in your house, because I think it's because I haven't logged in for a while and I have cockroaches in my house.
That's why I might consider just making a new account and starting it over.
Okay, enough of the cockroaches now. Sorry, I just needed to ask. It's like, what is going on?
Did you set your location to Hong Kong? Is that why there's like
no,
cockroaches?
Europe
And cockroaches. Interesting.
Sad.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. Anyway, we digress.
Kyle being online, so yeah, we've made a lot of international friends on the internet. So as far as we know, that Kyle he's actually working internationally as well. He's currently not in Canada and he's somewhere else. I'm not sure if he wants to reveal where he is.
I'm currently in Singapore.
Yeah.
Very interesting choice and very safe choice, I would say, for what's happening right now. I think Singapore is a country. Wink, wink, CNN. Singapore has one of the lowest cases of coronavirus in the whole world, and they're doing a really amazing job. Can you tell us a little bit about them, what their policies are, and if you know what's going on in Canada, maybe, what are their policies and how's it going in Canada?
I'll start off with Singapore first. I guess with Singapore, I would say it's pretty much brand with how a lot of Asian countries are doing with COVID policy-wise. So it'll be like everyone must wear masks inside and outside of public places, and like social distancing, make sure no one are sitting too closely to each other everywhere at bus stops and all those stuff, even in restaurants and whatnot. And like the biggest thing I would say, they do a lot of contact tracing. Every place that you go, you have to kind of sign in, indicating that you're COVID free per se, and like that you're like, essentially they just want to make sure they have a record of where you've been, and in case that there is COVID case in that area, they are able to track you down and like make sure you get tested or something like that. Makes you feel safe, really. Like everyone's also abiding to it for most part. Everyone's wearing their mask for sure, unless they're like exercising. So like when you're running, cycling, doing any kind of sport, you're allowed to take it off. But other than that, everyone's wearing their mask when they're on the transit and when they're walking around, all that stuff. And you can't really take off your mask in restaurants until you have food there, or you have water there. So
there is like rules to say that can't take off your mask until there's something on your table.
yes, for sure, yeah.
Oh,
And they're pretty strict about it. I went to like a supermarket and like I was holding a beverage, like drink. The employee didn't really see my drink, I guess, but they did see me without a mask on, and they just almost chased me down to say, you got to put on your mask on. So
oh
like,
wow.
they were pretty strict about it. Because I mean, in Singapore, if they see you without a mask or like someone reports you, if I recall correctly, the fine would be like $300 for not wearing a mask. So it's pretty substantial.
How much is that approximately, like, for if we convert it to?
Is it American dollars you're talking about?
Yeah, it's pretty much American dollars.
Oh, American dollars. Oh wow.
To that at least.
That is a heavy fine.
I know.
Yeah, you just mentioned that the majority of the citizens, the locals, are actually following the rules and they're not opposing to it. Is that correct?
Yeah, at least I didn't see or heard anything online up in terms of Singapore like news and stuff of them like complaining too much. It's just a normal like grunts of, oh, I have to keep doing this, but we've been doing this for a really long time, but they still got to do it because they realize it's a serious thing and it should be taken seriously. Like
Sounds so much better than what we have.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So is it very different in Canada then? Because I've seen reports about how they're opposed to some policies. I don't even know if they're in lockdown or is mask an essential thing for the citizens in Canada?
in terms of Canada, like I didn't really follow up as close because I'm not there, and like for most part Canada, they were in lockdown but they're out of lockdown now, and like they're kind of, at least in the province or like part of my hometown ish, they're technically right now in phase 2 or stage 2 of COVID, so they're not that out of the woods in terms of how good things should be. But then right now there's a recent spike in the area, so like in the region of where my home is, they're going back to like a modified like stage 2 kind of procedure, which means like indoor dining is no longer allowed, all the gyms, all the salons, all those stuffs are kind of closed again, so it's going backwards. But then for most part I would say it's not great, but then it's not bad. It could be controlled. It's just a matter of when we could get everything like sorted out. I don't worry too much about it in Canada versus like in America, where people literally are like so opposed to wearing masks. In Canada, there are always going to be those anti-mask people, but I don't think they are the majority.
Oh.
I think with Canada, it's just a lot of like, my friends like to say like it's always like the white people that doesn't like wearing the mask.
It's always the white people,
Like-
you're right.
Yeah. Like in like the area where I live, it's majority Asian people, so everyone abides by the rules and wearing masks everywhere. So in fact, in my area, even though there's a spike, it's still not that bad. Like the whole region, there's around 1.1 million people or so, and so far right now there's around just less than 100 cases each day,
Wow,
which
that's
is
good.
not great, but like, you know, still something to be happy about, at least for now, as long as they keep controlling it. And
Absolutely.
I don't know what else to say about it. I'm not happy about it because I need to go to Canada again, like just for whatever reason. But like right now I can't because, you know, so
That's sad.
I would say it seems like it's doing a lot better than how the UK is handling it.
Oh, God.
Thanks for reminding me, Carl. Thanks.
UK's an absolute joke right now.
I would say in terms of how Canada is dealing with it, it's similar in the way Australia and New Zealand has been handling it. But then Canada, I just think there's a lot of people, and also just, you know, it's still hard for a lot of people to understand you gotta wear a mask everywhere and like make sure you're like sanitized and being clean everywhere. So it takes time.
So where I am, every year we have a Christmas ball. Right now, they are asking people to participate in a poll, asking several questions like, if we were to do it this year, are you going to attend? If we're not breaking any rules, are you still going to attend?
Oh my
If we
God.
do it outdoors this year, will you be attending? And all sorts of like that. I'm like, are you serious? We're still in the pandemic. And I know people like to cancel it here. They actually literally said that they are cancelling COVID because they have had enough. It doesn't mean like it's an international organisation. It's usually the British and American people organising this ball. How dare they say anything like that that doesn't follow any of the rules? You were talking about how loosely following Canada and how the policies are. So respectively, they're doing better than the US.
I think they're pretty much top in terms of Western countries and how they handle it, aside from like possibly New Zealand. Because I mean, Australia has still got Victoria, which is a mess apparently. Because for some reason, everyone allows Australia to travel to them, except for Victoria. It's always like, except for Victoria.
Yeah, so there must be high cases over there. I've got to ask, because, you know, it's happening everywhere in the world right now. There are a lot of anti-Chinese or anti-East Asian sentiments all around the world because of the pandemic. Canada is famous for how friendly and well-managed they are, but I'm sure there are some cases going on in Canada as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Canada in its essence is a white-dominated majority country. So regardless how friendly or how nice you think Canada is, there's still,
I think so.
you know, things that they could do better. And racism is one of the things they could definitely improve on being less racist in general. Through this whole COVID thing, we could really see people are less afraid of being nice and just go off, even in places where you would think they wouldn't. Like in the area that I live in, there was like a supermarket where there was an incident that occurred where like a white person got really heated with an Asian person, going off at them and calling racist names and slurs and stuff, even though the fact that the area she's in, majority of the people there are Asian. In fact, if the white person lived there, they would be the minority. So it's really, I think COVID doesn't help anything like at all. All of them just think if you look yellow, it doesn't matter, we could just attack you because you're not one of us, right?
I feel really sad whenever you listen to those cases.
But I mean, like growing up, I never had issues like that, but I feel like now people just got to be prepared for that kind of incident if they are going to live out in the West.
Absolutely.
But I don't think if you're from the East, you are like raised to learn how to deal with that because you're always living in the majority. So
that's the conflict, I think, from what I can see on the internet and what's actually happening where I'm living, or where Perseus and myself, I would say, are living. We're living in a Asian as a minority kind of place. What we're facing right now is the reality of what Asians are going through. But people in Asia, especially as far as I can see from Hong Kong people and how they react to things, they don't really seem to think that that's a problem, because I'm making a bold assumption that they haven't actually been living in there.
Yes.
I'm speaking on behalf of, you know, a lot of East Asians, especially living in a white dominant world, that it is actually happening. You do get stares, you do get mistreatments from usually white people or people who think that they're white, in my case. So it is happening. I've been really, really upset actually this morning when I saw, I don't know if you've seen that, there's a Japanese American jazz pianist in New York. He's been attacked, right, because of his ethnicity. There's a more detailed report saying that it's because his pregnant girlfriend was being attacked, or, you know, being shoved on the street, and he was protecting her, and then he got himself in trouble. So what I saw on Facebook was that the people commenting in Cantonese saying that, well, actually, we have to look at the facts. He was the one who went at the people who shoved his girlfriend. So he's the one who's creating this dispute and not other people. So I bet there's something wrong with him, and it's nothing to do with his ethnicity.
So it's just victim blaming at this point.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And gaslighting.
How does that work? Like, he's actually stepping in to stop someone attacking someone else.
It's his pregnant girlfriend, as the commenter has said himself. The girlfriend is pregnant, of course. For anybody, even if it's not the dad, you would be protective of a pregnant woman, wouldn't you?
Of course.
No matter what the situation is. And how, I don't know how it went. I don't know if he shoved him back, or I don't know if it's just a verbal thing. It wouldn't result in a normal situation. Let's have an imaginary situation that it's two white people. Do you think they will turn into an attack like this that resulted him into serious injury to his arms and hands that he could not perform and affects his
livelihood?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think two white people would do that to each other.
And the sad thing about all this is that being happened in America and the whole social climate and how they see race, it will take a lot of evidence or like convincing for them to really say it's a hate crime. Yeah, it wouldn't be the case if it was a white and black situation where a person that was attacked or like got hurt was black. Like right away, it would be a hate crime, but if it's Asian, it's always where they're always doubting it and always saying it has nothing to do with race. That kind of thing. At least that's how I feel with a lot of issues with like Asian attacks. It also doesn't help how, if I read the article correctly, the pianist did not say it was hate crime driven. So it's kind of hard for them to also say it's a hate crime, it's racism. So they could just be like more charging them if they are going to charge those attackers just assault, which is not as serious as like a hate crime.
I was just looking at the news, and it wasn't that someone attacked his pregnant girlfriend. So basically, I'm just reading the news. He came out the subway station, and then he was pushed from behind by two people. He was pushed from behind, and two people began yelling at him. And then he actually said he didn't know why he was pushed. One of the two people who was yelling at him pointed at him and said, "This guy just pushed me. That's not true." And then one of the others said, "She's pregnant," as if to imply that I had just attacked a pregnant person. One male began beating him, followed him and continued to attack him, and then called him a Chinese motherfucker.
Okay. What I read was from the commenter. The commenter has put it in that way.
Although, like, the news seems to have reported it differently. The fact that this is just
Which did you read it from?
complaining.
Which
Of all sources.
CNN.
Oh, Hong Kong people hate CNN.
That's another story.
Hong Kong people thinks that CNN is helping Biden too much and they hate them.
Oh, for God's sakes, what is this obsession with Trump?
Well, I think we should always just quote Fox News so we don't get any issues.
It's okay.
Amazing.
I think they won't attack us because they do think they really know about like foreign countries' issues.
And they don't listen to English.
They don't listen to English. They think they are so really knowledgeable about these, and they're not going to listen.
Yeah, so maybe like link the comment and say like this is what we've read, or that we know other news outlets have said, have reported it in a different way.
Either way, it's still just a really crappy thing to happen to just a human being. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. But I think the whole victim blaming thing comes from that particular post, doesn't it? Because otherwise, if you just look at the actual news report, there's no victim blaming in there.
In international English outlets, absolutely not. What I want to point out is that the Hong Kong,
Yes, the Cantonese comments.
that's coming from Hong Kong people, they are
Yeah.
victim blaming
Yeah.
without even knowing the whole issue, and
Yeah,
they're living in their
yeah.
own world, thinking that they know everything.
I think like people in Asia that looks into Western news or Western lifestyle and stuff don't recognize the whole notion of you can like work your way up. That's a very Asian thing where you can work your way up and people will not look down on you or anything like that as long as their status is high. But in the West, it doesn't work that way where even if you are able to work your way up, be like highest of the highest, for them, if you are not of white color face, you're still like for them outsider, and if you're outsider, they're not going to give you respect.
But I think maybe draw the equivalent. Do you think a white person in China or Hong Kong can, or Taiwan or East Asian countries, do you think a white person can work really hard and climb like an Asian person could?
They don't have to work hard. They already climbed high when they come to Asia.
Well, no, but what about like ethnic minorities in Asia that were born there? Like, I'm sure there are some people that weren't necessarily expats.
Still, if you're a white person, if you have a white face in Hong Kong, you are already like a professional in your
Yes.
field, no matter how well you are.
Yes, that's really true.
I think that, so Perseus, are you suggesting like it doesn't, I'm trying to understand what you're trying to get at. What about like climbing up for white people in Asia?
No, so I'm asking, you talk about Asians in Hong Kong or China or East Asia just generally having really good work ethic and climbing up through their work ethic, isn't it? So I was just asking, yes, because they can't do that in Western countries because of white privilege, racial privilege and stuff like that. But does the same apply if you turn it the other way, where like a white person born in Asia, can he climb as high, or can he still climb if he has a good work ethic, or is there prejudice?
I would say it really dependent on that specific white individual and like what kind of things they're intending to do in Asia.
Okay.
It's very like industry specific, I feel. But like back to my original point of like saying, I think how Asians in Asia think is, say you make it like you're a C, like any kind of C status position. At the end of the day, people are in the West are not gonna take you as or respect you as much as they would if you were white. You can work your butt off to do whatever it takes to go all the way to the top. At the end of the day, you might still face racial discrimination or even racist attack just because of how you look. They don't care of your status. For most part, they just see you how you are, and then if they feel like it and they want to attack you, they will attack you.
So using myself as an example, my job, my field, I'm qualified with my education background. I am qualified and experienced in what I do. So I am fully fitting to have a promotion one time, but I couldn't. I bargained 3 times within a white majority office at the time. They'd rather have nobody in the leading position, in the management position, than promoting me, because in their words at the time, they said it's not needed to have that position, which is not true, because every single department has a management figure except for mine, but I'm the only one who's qualified to be that person, but I'm not allowed to because I'm not a white person.
Yeah, that's actually what we have to prepare if we're with someone. If you guys are going to work in the white dominant places, and yeah, you have to be prepared of suffering those. Although sad stories are the situation now, and also due to the pandemic, so let us talk something like happier and fun, because I know Kyle is raised in Canada, and also Janice and Perseus. So actually, what's the situation back to the States?
Yeah, let's talk about our childhood. Let's do
Alright.
a little comparison.
All right.
Yeah.
So where should we start?
School.
Schooling, yes.
No homework.
You had no homework?
No.
Don't get homework.
But in secondary school I did, not in primary.
What do you mean
Super
no
jealous.
That's
homework?
because you went to a boarding school. That's prestigious.
That's really strange because I remember since elementary, I always had homework. I mean, like, I usually go back to Hong Kong, like, when I was young, like, every summer. But there was, like, a year where I had to go earlier. So it was still during the school year. So what happened was I had to carry all my homework back to Hong Kong.
Oh, wow.
And did it when I was in Hong Kong. So there was definitely homework. I find it really strange that UK isn't like
We're
that.
really relaxed.
Yeah, no homework in primary. Well, at least I did in primary school.
Yeah, me neither.
Like, I wouldn't say it was intensive homework, but there's enough where it's like it's still substantial, where like not like where it's just like you go to school and then go home, no homework at all.
We have like quote unquote homework, but it's more like a very fun interactive project that we have to do instead of working on worksheets. So we might need to do like an observation of how often the birds come to your birdhouse that you made,
Oh, that's fun.
what they ate, and how much water they've taken, how often do you need to feed them again, and all sorts like that. And then the measurements kind of, I remember there's one maths project kind of thing. We did it in class, and we have to do an extension at home, have to measure things, that's it. So measure how long our arms are, how we reach this place to another, and things like that. So it's to do with measuring, it's to do with the measuring units.
So very basic stuff to do for homework.
Yeah. That's why I get all the top marks in maths.
Sounds like if you guys are planning to immigrate and you want your children to have like homework and stuff, carry on that Hong Kong education tradition, go to Canada.
Well, I mean, it's still not comparable to Hong
Oh,
Kong
yeah,
for
no.
sure, any Asian country.
Oh yeah,
But like,
definitely not as
so
intensive.
how do they grade you and stuff if there's no homework and stuff, just purely on tests and whatnot?
Well, we get like there's like a
Observation.
test at the end of primary school, but yeah, I did not have homework.
But that's for going to secondary school, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's before you go to secondary though.
Yeah, so it's not even an internal
No.
test.
Wow.
It's external
Wow.
for the system to put you in a proper secondary school.
Well, I mean, the Hong Kong education system is based on the UK, so it's pretty much similar. But like in Canada, it's entirely different. Where like you guys always mention like A levels or O levels, we didn't have any of that.
Oh, really?
What do you guys have?
We didn't have any standardized
Okay.
testing in that regard. Like,
Wow.
Oh.
in order to go to the school or whatnot, apply to like a special school, it's always just based on your grade for each subject that you went throughout the
Oh,
year.
so you don't have like a national examination
No, we don't.
team or anything like that?
Yeah, or like we did have or at least in the area that we did, but it's more for like stats purposes and not really anything that will affecting your educational
Oh,
career.
wow.
Wow, that's quite good actually. Not like depending your whole life just by one exam.
Yeah. Yeah, which I think it's nice, but also there could be negative to it. Like depends on your like studying style, I guess. But I always find it strange how, like, for at least UK, like, if you have all these standardized testing, so does it mean whatever you have done in school, it doesn't matter? Because all it matters is your test then, right?
Pretty
Your
much.
standardized testing.
Well, I mean, you get coursework as part of your exam, but that's not really the same as judging your performance throughout the whole year.
So let's just say, hypothetically, I was in the UK. I was a student in, like, primary or secondary, and, like, there's these national tests or standardized testing. If I haven't gone to school at all, if I didn't do any homework at all, but I'm really, really smart, I could get grades that are really good for the test, will it affect my educational career?
Well, they might look at what school you went to, but people do homeschool, so I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't a secondary school on your CV, for example. I mean, homeschooling is allowed.
No, I mean, as in, like, say I did go to school, but I never completed anything. Like, all I did was just show up for the national test.
It depends if the school will let you sit it,
Oh.
because the school registers you for the exam.
At least as an outsider, that's how I see it. It's like, oh, as long as you do well on those standardized testing, then you're fine. Then you'll get to go to the secondary school you want. And
You
then,
can't actually do that. I mean, so, I think because people do look at the results, and then obviously to go to university, you need to have the offers there based on the results. You have to have a personal statement, so you might have to explain why you were so lazy in school.
Okay, makes sense. But yeah, we didn't really have national testing per se.
Oh, wow. You know what? Go to Canada, you get homework in primary school, and there's less pressure on exams.
In Canada, in order to get to university, you have to complete X amount of courses during high school, and like those courses are like bounded to be like university level courses that are preparing you to go to university, and it's the grades that you get from those courses that you've done during that last 2 years of your school, and also your extracurriculars.
And you have to work hard on every subject if you want to go to university, because there are no like one exams to define you.
In terms of like what kind of grades, I would say, like, if say you really want to go into like a science major, then you would want to take specifically science courses and like make sure you do well in those. But like I would say, not only do they look at individual courses and your grades for those, if say it's science major, they want to look at those science marks specifically, but they also look at your top, like, let's just say there's 8 courses you take during that year, and then like your top 6 or something, and the highest average.
I see.
It's not based on like a standardized testing for each subject that you take.
That's very flexible indeed.
I think it is good though, because like some people can be really good at exams, but they can be just really crap at learning.
Oh, you mean Hong Kongers?
Whoa, I never said anything like that. Whoa.
Okay, I have to admit, somehow, we are actually in the, like, higher secondary life. We are actually not learning about the language itself, but learning how to answer those questions. I have to admit, it is true.
Yeah, you're learning how to pass exams.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
I think that's actually fine, because that's what they want. So can't really stop how they want things unless you're willing to take the risk of like learning it your own way, and like hopefully you can do well on the exam as well.
Yeah, maybe, but that's somehow like, because learning isn't like passing the exams. Learning itself isn't aimed at that, but that's Hong Kong's system. So if you're not only focusing on the exams, you actually learn nothing, I can say, compared to other countries.
I think it's just the method behind it, isn't it?
And somehow the education system in Hong Kong really sucks, and they don't teach you how to think, and that's really bad.
I can see this kind of impact right now in our fellow yellow ribbons.
Yes, really, that's
not
true.
thinking.
I learned how to think after I get into the university and know more about differences with people, and also after like playing Twitter, meeting so many other peoples in the world. But our high school education doesn't help with our whole thinking system. They don't teach us how to do critical thinking, and I think that is not a good education system for human.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of ridiculous that how they trained you during high school, but then if you say you still want to go to like a local university, when you go into that local university, it's all still going to be critical thinking. That's the key, I would believe.
That's
So
true.
they didn't really prepare you for high school.
Yeah.
I think that's a very different, isn't it? Because I think when Janice and I went to obviously school in the UK, but I think when we went to secondary school, there was a lot of encouragement of
Yes.
questioning,
That's good.
critical thinking, like especially when you do history. One of my subjects was history, and we were encouraged to question evidence. We were encouraged to question, is this piece of evidence reliable? Is this piece of information reliable? Is this source of news reliable? So yeah, we were very much encouraged to do that, but it sounds like from what Miffy's saying is very different to what the education in Hong Kong is. It just seems in Hong Kong, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seems like you're saying in Hong Kong it's literally learn it this way and then you'll pass the exam. That's all you need to know. That's it.
Yes, that's true. And somehow we don't even encourage you to question or raise any questions during the class, because if you do that, you're like, our timetable is very tight, and if you raise questions and that makes the teacher have to take some time to answer your question,
Right.
and then you make this whole class into a slower pace than other classes. Teachers will compare like which classes is doing faster job, and they think the class doing a faster pace is better. So all we have to do is to teach all those syllabus, and after that we did the job, and then we are great. But not like asking why or.
I think the focus of education in the UK seems to be giving you the tools to pass the exam rather than just telling you this is what you need to do, but not explaining the theory behind it.
Yeah, I agree.
That's much better, I can say. But luckily, I know this is not a very good way to learn after I went into the university, and I do think normally for Hong Kong students, if you go to the local universities, the first year is really hard because it's a total different learning system and you have to learn how to learn again. So it's very a tough year for me.
So just now, Kyle mentioned that your hometown, the majority of the population is Asian. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So it's not the case with me, I think, nor for Perseus. Around us, I remember growing up, I had one Japanese friend, but it's because my father used to study in a university and we lived in university campus. It's an international kind of family campus kind of thing. So there's a lot of different families going in and out, in and out. So that's how I made friend with a Japanese girl, because her parent was also studying there and she moved afterwards. So that's one East Asian that I've known growing up. There's another girl, I think I've told everybody this story. There's a girl from Beijing in my class. Yeah, she's the only other East Asian that I've known growing up, actually, in my town, because it's quite a white town. In your case, when you're making friends, because that makes it, in my case, when I'm growing up, majority of my friends are white people when I was a kid, not when I'm grown up. Is it the same in your case, or because it's easier, because you have more Asians in your hometown, you would stick together, or you would purposely, when you're growing up, make friends with white people? Actually, it doesn't matter. You make friends with either.
It's a very good question, and I would say, like, your experience, I never had that growing up. For most part of my life in Canada, it was always either East Asian or like South Asians, Indians. So for example, in like high school graduation, my school was like the first year, my class was the first graduating class, and in that class there's 100 or so people that graduated. And then if I look back in like the graduation pictures, everyone was pretty much either Asian or South Asian. The white people or black people that we could see, you could count with your fingers.
Wow.
So like from elementary school to high school, it was always that kind of environment where like I didn't really had much interaction with like white people per se, unless I really venture into like outside my area or like just more of a Western setting, like maybe going to like a Western restaurant or like government buildings and stuff. So making friends, I would say it was pretty much just people that was almost like me, Asian, or like just had like a similar immigrant background kind of thing. Like my interaction with like white people intensively really kind of started in university when I left town and went to like a university that was in a university town kind of vibe where most of the people were white, which makes sense because we were in Canada.
Was language an issue then? Because obviously if you're mixing mainly with East Asians, are you speaking English? Are you speaking Chinese, Cantonese, whatever dialect? Was there an issue in terms of language learning? Because obviously a lot of language learning is based on usage, isn't it?
In terms of language, the question, I would say like we spoke mainly in English just because even with like all the Chinese or Asian people that were there, it was people that are mostly like sons or daughters of immigrants, so they themselves aren't really the immigrants themselves. So there are a lot of just like Canadian born Chinese or Indian, whatever it may be. So they're like either first generation or 1.5. So like English is still like a language that they would know and learn, and they could speak Chinese or Cantonese or whatever language they have at home, but like English is still like the main language to use because we're still in Canada.
So because of how international, ethnicity-wise, your school is when you're growing up, is there like an international day that celebrates all these different backgrounds and cultures?
I think just because of how my age anyways, I think we weren't there yet in terms of like really celebrating diversity in that manner. Like I think we acknowledged it, but like we didn't really try to make an effort to like really celebrate it and say right now where they will actually have like, oh, like a Chinese New Year day or whatever like that. I think we didn't have that. At least I don't remember.
My sister and I were the token Chinese in our school. Every Chinese New Year, we were asked to wear our Chinese traditional outfit to go to school.
Well, what did you wear?
Changsam.
Oh, wow.
So
A
stereotypical.
little bit of K-pole
Oh, wow.
that my mom brought for us from Hong Kong. It was cute when you look at that, but you know, when you grow up and look back, you see how cringe it is.
Yeah, I can see that.
We didn't mind the spotlight, you know, every now and then when we were kids, but yeah, we were the only two people who were wearing these weird outfits to white children. And then suddenly we were asked, so yeah, today it's not just a normal Tuesday, it's a special day because it's Chinese New Year. And then Janice and Janice's sister, would you like to come forward in assembly in front of the whole school?
That's amazing.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we would be asked to go up onto the stage to the vice principal and we talk about our culture, which we don't know anything of.
If anything, you could say they're progressive and ahead of their time.
It was, yeah, quite different, I would say, because in my town there weren't a lot of diversity. And I think it's really good growing up with such different cultures and different kind of faces that they can see so they don't get what majority of the white people are facing right now when they see something different. They're scared.
Yeah. But I have a question for Janice and Perseus. Growing up in the UK, was at least in UK area, there's no area where mostly Asian all live. At least in like North America wise, there's certain pockets of places where it's all Asian.
Well, certainly, like, not in the area that I grew up in. I mean, certainly, I think I'm not sure living, but honestly, if you want to find a concentration of Asian shops or restaurants, you've got Chinatown. I'm not sure if there was I certainly didn't know when I was growing up whether there was like a specific area where all the Asians were living in terms of East Asians. When I went to primary school, there was one other Chinese boy in my class. Went to secondary school, there was no Chinese at all. So yeah.
Like at least in North America, it's historically where like a lot of Asians would move to the same area just because it's easier for them. I just find it surprising how in the UK there isn't something like that similar, because I find it really interesting there wasn't anyone Asian other than yourself and all your family members in the school that you were in. I guess Asians in UK just spread out a lot more, perhaps.
Like I said, I mean, I didn't I didn't notice this growing up, but certainly it didn't seem like that because, like I said, when I went to primary school, there was only one other Chinese boy in my class, and then when I went to secondary school, I had no Chinese people in my class at all.
The town that I grew up in, according to like the 2016 census, 46.5% of the population was Chinese.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, that is quite high.
My town, I went back a few years ago. Before I left, it was a white majority town. But when I went back, especially went back to my dad's university, I saw a lot of international students that are Chinese students, mainland Chinese students.
They're kind of going everywhere these days. So
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No,
So
no.
I think, I don't know, back then it wasn't a popular place to go to. The university is, because I remember my dad making friends with fellow Hong Kongers, which we still keep in contact with.
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
Okay, so how about the food over there? So because actually before 5 you're eating Hong Kong style food or like Chinese dining, so there must be a big difference in between two countries. So is it okay, or is it that easy for you to accept those food in those countries?
In terms of food, I would say like I was pretty like privileged or like blessed. The area I live in, it was pretty much all Asians, so like the Asians are mostly like the Hong Kong immigrants pre-handover. So like there were a lot of like Hong Kong style restaurants or Asian food around me all the time. But in terms of eating food at school, it's a little weird because if I remember correctly, I rarely did I bring anything like really specifically Asian or Chinese food. It was sometimes just sandwiches that pretty typical. And if I did bring Chinese food, no one really bat an eye because everyone else were Asian as well, so they didn't really say anything because they eat that as well. I never had like the experience of a lot of like immigrants in the West that went to school. It was like, oh, people made fun of my lunch. I never had that. Like, I don't remember any like issues with that at all.
That's actually good that you're blessed to have that experience. I wouldn't say protected, but you didn't have that experience that most typical Asian kids would face when they're in a white majority environment. My parents, I think 2 reasons. One is that they're very busy. 2 is that I think I might have complained about bringing in Chinese food. It's just really normal Chinese food. It's just rice, fried rice. That's it. Got teased at, and then I think that was that one time, and then afterwards my parents just went, that's it, I think you're just going to get school lunch. So I don't have to bring you food and you can eat the same things all the other kids are eating.
But the school lunches are really bad though. They're not like that great at all.
Actually,
They weren't
my
that
school
bad.
lunch
My
is
school lunches
really
were
good.
okay.
My school lunches are great, especially like the dessert.
Oh, yeah.
We actually have chocolate cake with chocolate custard, warm chocolate custard,
That's
like just
good.
poured over the chocolate
Oh,
cake.
no. I had when I had school lunches at primary school, we used to have like apple crumble with custard.
Yes,
I
I
know,
love
right?
custard.
Secondary school was the same.
You saying this, I think people should just go to the UK to study
Just for the food.
just for the food.
Just for the food, yeah. It's like if you want your children to have that hardcore homework style education, go to Canada. If you want good school food, come to UK.
That's really much better than I imagined because actually Hong Kong school food is so bad.
Really?
Really bad. It depends on schools, but most of the schools are like if you're secondary 1 to 3, you're not allowed to go out for lunch. And if you're in higher forms, like if you're a senior, you can go out for lunch. And that's definitely okay, definitely alright for the seniors because there are so many choices outside school. But if you're a junior, your only choice is the tuck shop in your school or the lunchbox, which provided by some very big suppliers like Maxim's or Cafe de Caro. Those companies, those lunchboxes, they're like mass cooked in a big factory and then transported to your school, and so it's good, but no one wants them anymore. I mean, this horrible memory is like
Sounds like you've got like PTSD from the bad
Yeah.
food.
I don't know, Miffy. I kind of feel like school lunches in Hong Kong schools are not bad according to the TVB dramas that I
no,
watch.
it's fake.
You've been mistaken.
But I guess it's wrong. It's fake.
I think a lot of people's perspective, your first mistake would be watching the TVB dramas in the first place.
It wasn't what it is when we were growing up. TVB was like a sacred Cantonese sauce.
That's how I learned my Cantonese.
Oh, no, just watch Stephen Chow films instead.
I've never watched any. I've watched
What?
one when I was, how long ago was that, Miffy? A month ago, I watched one of them
Yeah.
for the first
Like
time
a
ever.
month
Is
ago?
it?
Yes.
But I feel like Stephen Chow is for like a specific age group though that really
Yeah.
got into it.
I think my parents forbade me from watching because it was inappropriate for children.
But that's so funny. From what Kyle mentioned, I think Canada is kind of good country. At least it's okay for you to live in. But why do you leave Canada?
So I've been away from Canada for close to 3 years, or a little more than 3 years. So first I moved to Taiwan, and now I'm in Singapore. So I moved to Asia specifically just because I wanted to like see more of Asia and also like kind of see what else is there available for me to do, because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do career wise, and I was just like wanting to see more of Asia because I felt like it was really hard for me to see a lot of things in Canada just because like traveling plane wise was really difficult. It's not as cheap as it is if you say you fly from Asia to another Asian country. There's a lot of budget airlines to go to different places in Asia through Asia itself, and I just like the lifestyle living in Asia, I guess. But I don't know, it's kind of where Canada is nice, but I just find like being Asia makes me feel more comfortable, more at home regardless of where I'm at. I just feel like I fit better in Asia than I do in Canada.
So now that you're in Asian countries and you've worked in Asian countries, can I ask if you have worked in Canada as well?
Yes, I have worked in Canada as well. I wouldn't say that I had a bad experience working in Canada. It was just more like maybe on my own. I just felt like they didn't really think I was part of them, or like maybe for me personally, I felt like an outsider all the time being in Canada, even though they might not think that. It's just, I think, internal struggle or like identity issue that I have just being raised in Canada but not really feeling like I belong.
I think that's a very personal feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think some people that I know that are having a similar background as you, who were born in Hong Kong but raised in Canada, I think they do think that they belong to Canada. They would really proudly say that they're Canadian and not wanting to go anywhere else besides having struggles looking for a job, I guess. They're really proud, and I think I've told you this story about how some of them identify themselves as bananas.
Yeah, I don't identify myself as that.
What, as a fruit?
I like bananas, but you know,
I like artificial banana flavor.
I would just say eat the real banana. It's more healthy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what about dating? I know that you are currently not single.
Yes, I'm not single. Yes.
Your partner is a non-white person, in comparison to my situation.
Yes. Yeah, she's
Yes.
Singaporean Chinese.
So yeah, there must be that. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing in terms of like having similar cultural backgrounds. In terms of similar, I wouldn't say really exactly the same, because you two did grow up in different places. But language-wise, or maybe there's definitely some like customs in the Chinese or Cantonese culture that matches the Singaporean Chinese side, I would say.
Yeah.
At least, for example, you don't have to explain to your partner what a red packet is, for example.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would say definitely that's true, and like we share a lot of like similar Asian values per se, and like I don't have to explain to her like specific Asian like stuff that I do, because they do it as well, and it just also works out that she also knows Cantonese, and so that's a plus as well. And I think we share similarities despite us not living in the same continent during our childhood. I get how she is and she gets how I am, so I don't really have like the struggle of having to explain myself or like just not understanding how she feels if it's based on like cultural sensitivity stuff compared to if I dated a white person.
I wonder if that's also something to do with the fact that you grew up with a lot of Asians in your vicinity as well when you were in Canada.
That could be a factor. I would say so, yeah.
So have you ever had experience dating a white person?
No, I have not. But it's one of
So Perseus has.
Oh, okay.
Both sides.
How was your experience, Perseus?
This is a show about you, not me.
I want to say Perseus' girlfriend Andromeda is listening
Yes.
right now live, so he can't say.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
I'm sorry to put you on
Well,
the
no,
spot.
I can. I mean,
Let's just say his best experience is the
His
present one.
recent one is his last
that
experience.
you are
ever.
right though in terms of sort of cultural values and stuff like that. Like I was saying to Janice before, that I found issues with regards to closeness to family activities, and so on and so forth. But Janice was saying that she's been quite lucky in that Nolan, although she's had to explain certain things, Nolan seems to be sort of quite understanding and going along with the whole Asian family values thing.
Yeah, I would say my other friends aren't as lucky. I know a BBC who's a guy, and he's been dating around and with both ethnicities, white people, and currently he is engaged to a girl from Hong Kong. So he actually said that he preferred dating people from Asia, or particularly Hong Kong, because of the values that they share, the similar values that he has that white people don't have. I think it's very similar to what Perseus has told me as well, like family values, basically. White girls, in general, don't want to, put stereotypes on people, but in general, probably to do with the age as well, they don't really want to settle down that early. But for a lot of Asian guys that I know of, no matter what age, when you're age appropriate, around 25 or older, you want to settle down. You want to date to get married and not just, dating around and play around. So that was a different mindset, I think, between Western culture and East Asian culture. But yeah, so that's why he would rather approach someone that doesn't really speak his language, because his Cantonese isn't that well, than going for someone who's white.
I think it's not only about the settling down thing, but it's about general family values. Like we were discussing in one of our other episodes, how a lot of, and again, we're not saying everyone's like, but certainly a lot of people in the West seem to want to leave the family home as soon as possible. Whereas for Asians, it's we kind of stay with our families for as long as possible.
Yes, that's true.
Whether you like it or not.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yes, true. So, okay, well, speaking of family values and everything like that, I'm sure you and your partner has talked about getting married or settling down, having a family.
I am married already.
Congratulations! Ooh. When you arrived to Singapore?
Yes.
Oh, congratulations!
You didn't tell me. Congratulations!
Thank you.
Oh, amazing! Yeah. I knew something's gonna happen. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
So, don't want to be the typical person who asked you that question, but we did talk about
that.
But
you are going
yes,
to
I am going to anyway, be that horrible person. When are you having kids? I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. Carl and I talked about this. We had this discussion. It's not like it's out of nowhere. I know that he had plans.
Okay.
Well, in terms of having kids, we were thinking like in the next year or year and a half, but it all depends on how COVID and the current situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything's kind of unstable, so we'll see.
So, since both of you are Chinese ethnicity, because you both English-speaking individuals as well, so what are you going to do with the English names, or naming your child? Of course, they're going to have bilingual names, right? Chinese name as well as an translated English name, I would say.
What do you mean by translated English name? I'm kind of confused.
So it's like a Romanized Chinese name.
Oh.
Yeah.
In terms of how I want things to be, like we talked about it, and like my plan would be like to just have a romanticized Chinese name for the actual, like I won't give like an English name. Like the kids could be Tom or Janice or anything like that. Just no English name at all, just Chinese name.
Mm-hmm. And is there a reason for that? Because there's a reason that I'm asking this. It's my personal experience and my situation as well. For me to find a job right now, because my English name is not on my official ID or passport or anything like that. So for me to find a job, it's quite hard because everyone assumes that I don't know English, even with my background. So to make my life easier, I'm actually considering changing my official name to something else once I get married, because I have to do those legal documents anyway.
Yes, that's a very big concern, yeah.
But is that when you get married, isn't that just changing your surname?
I would like to change my first name to an English name as well.
Ah.
Yeah, change it completely and keeping my my Chinese name in Chinese, of course. But in terms of naming my child, I'm still deciding whether to do a double barrel name or just keeping Nolan's last name.
Yeah, that's tough. But for me personally, like the reason why I want to forego like an actual English name, just because I feel like there's no need for an English name. Like I understand like the concern that Janice have in terms of like job opportunities or like something like that, which we are also thinking about. But at the same time, we are in Asia right now, and that's where we're hoping or potentially basing our lives on. So having just a Chinese name wouldn't be an issue at all.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And another reason I feel like I'm Chinese after all, so it's like it's not such a strange thing to just have a Chinese name. I feel like regardless of where you are.
True.
And but we're dwelling with like whether or not we should just go fully like that or like have a English name as well, just because say we want to bring the family to Canada one day or like live there permanently. Still, it's still undecided, but like we don't want to have to deal with like specific racist incidents regarding just because of the name. So that's something we are looking at and like try to figure out and what should we do. I'm not that concerned about like the job prospect reasons for like the name thing, but like it's definitely something. But I feel like the person or the children that we will have will figure something out regardless. We're more worried about the racism more than anything, I feel.
Yeah.
That we'll get. So our solution would probably will have them have like a middle name that's English, I guess, perhaps. But
I love the fact that there are some people that actually think race privilege is not a thing, but the fact that we are actually having this discussion kind of demonstrates that it still is a problem.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it will be a long-term problem. It won't go away.
But I mean, like, it's not something that I'm that set on, but I really want this to be a thing that we do. But we'll see what's best or what are our options. Like we're thinking like maybe the middle name be English, so it could be a random English name, but then like the last name would be last name and the first name would be the name in Chinese, in Pinyin or whatever. It'll be like Cantonese Pinyin.
Yeah.
So
So to end this episode on a lighter note, can you reveal to us what your parents named you before they changed your name to Kyle? They actually named you another English name, didn't they?
oh, did I tell you this?
Yeah, on the group chat. Yeah, you did.
Before they named me Kyle, my name Kyle was given to me after we immigrated to Canada. Before that, my English name was Rocky.
Okay.
Is there a reason? Is your dad a fan?
I'm pretty sure it was because of that and that only.
Oh,
And,
great. Now I have the Rocky song in my head. Thanks for that.
we got that changed when I'm in Canada. They changed it for me because their friend in Canada, when we got here, it was like, maybe you shouldn't give them the boy such a fierce or like a name like that because it's just yield like unwarranted like potentially like attacks or like just kids not being nice and just messing with the kid. So they changed it to Kyle. So, but yeah, and then I told my partner this, and like she hates the name, like my original name.
Oh
She
my
just
god.
feels like it's just like a name for dogs.
Oh. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's a different kind of cultural difference, isn't it? Like immigrant parents don't know what particular English name it is to give to a child and then ending up giving them certain things. I've got, it's another Canadian friend actually. Her name is Becky. But it's not
Okay.
short for Rebecca. It's actually just Becky on her official things. It's because
Fair
her
enough.
parents didn't know that Becky stands for Rebecca. And when and when they did the paperwork and everything, they didn't say Rebecca. They wrote Becky.
But then to be fair, that's still a pretty okay
Yeah,
name,
it's okay.
regardless, though.
Like, for example, there are some people, even if it's not parents, though, like some Chinese people, they go through this process of picking their own English name. And some of the choices are just so, like, cringy.
Yeah. Tell me about it. My own cousin in Hong Kong, he gone through so many name changes over the years that is ridiculous. Each one gets worse and worse. He would combine two English names together to
What?
make one English name, all that stuff. So,
Did he get the influence or the inspiration from like double barrel names like Mary Jane or like Fionn Amy?
I don't know at this point. I never like really asked. I just went with it because throughout my time, like I known he had at least like 4 different English names throughout the
dear.
year. So I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then living in Asia, I heard of really interesting names for kids. Like someone named them Curry.
What?
Of course, based on like the basketball player.
Oh
But
my
okay.
god.
most people, if they don't watch basketball, would just think Curry as like the food, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's always the car names like Mercedes
Oh my
or
God.
Porsche,
Yeah.
those kind of stuff.
Are you
Sure, it's
serious?
fine. Yeah, yeah.
Oh dear. I mean, look, just hearing some people's like the English names they pick, I'm like thinking, like, you sound more like a porn star now.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's the vibe. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Like, there is actually a politician in Hong Kong that I like. Whenever I hear her English name, I just think she's a porn star.
What's her name?
Oh, Starry,
Oh yes,
Sorry.
Starry.
Ah.
Starry
That
Lung or
sounds so
something.
much
Yeah.
like a
God.
porn star name.
Yeah. I don't know. Some of the Hong Kong politicians also got some really interesting, very white British English names,
Like?
like Baggio and stuff.
Well, they might be educated in like a top school in Hong Kong or something, right?
Yes.
But it concerns me because sometimes they might pick like a lot of the bad English British men's name that are like, I don't know, they did pretty some horrible name.
Well, like, I've never heard of the name Junius until
Oh yeah.
or Guanyu.
Yeah.
English name.
Oh,
I've
my
never
God,
heard of
yeah.
Junius ever before.
So glad for us to have Kyle here to talk about so many things in Canada and also the situations now and the past and also the fun facts about his life. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
It was
you.
actually
It's been
really
fun.
fun.
Thank you so much.
Kyle is actually a fellow podcaster, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I do have a podcast
Yeah.
now, and it's called "What Kind of Asian Are You?" You know, a little cheeky and
It sounds like a BuzzFeed quiz.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I will have
so-
conversation with Asians and ask them what kind of Asians they are, and listen to their stories, and we'll have good conversation about being Asian and also how is it like being Asian in the West. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, make sure to check it out. It's on all digital platforms other than iTunes, but I'm working on that. Again, it's What Kind of Asian Are You?
Yes. So,
Check it out.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe to his podcast channel and also our podcast channel. So yeah, that's almost for today. Thank you for listening to us. And next week we are going to let Perseus to do his solo episode. Yeah, because
Wow.
he left us on our first episode.
I'm being punished because I missed the first episode, so I get to catch up.
That's
Yes,
exciting.
and maybe we'll make some changes on the podcast. And that will be our season 2 podcast. So stay tuned and subscribe to our channels, and we'll see you on next episode.
Look out on our social media as to what we're going to be doing next week. I
Yes.
haven't quite decided yet, so this is going to be interesting.
Yes, also Kyle has his own Twitter account, so don't forget to follow him. We'll link all the things down in the description. Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
So, thank you so much for listening. Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.